Good to see you here again. I know the ground you're covering is enormous, and the calendar keeps shrinking. And I know that this examination, the one exam that can quietly rewrite the direction of your entire life, carries a weight that few outside this room understand. So let us not waste a minute. This is issue 046 of the Sociology desk. Today we are going to work with two events that sit right on top of the syllabus and that I fully expect an alert examiner to convert into a question this year. The first is the finance minister's Aix-en-Provence statement, placing the middle class as India's engine of growth. The second is the Registrar General of India opening the Census 2027 pretest, which is going to be the first fully digital caste enumeration since 1931. You may be wondering, is this really sociology or is this economy? The answer is, this is exactly the kind of current affairs that a top ranker learns to sync with the right thinker and the right concept. And that syncing is what separates the top ranker from the aspirant who narrates the news. Let us begin. Event 1. The finance minister, speaking at Rencontre économique in Aix-en-Provence in France between the 3rd and the 5th of July, made a very specific structural claim. She said the middle class today accounts for 31% of India's population, that 93% of all spending in India will come from the middle class and aspirational consumers by the year 2036, and that nearly 500 Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities are set to emerge as new economic centers. This is a syllabus-perfect trigger for Paper 2, Section B, Subunit 4, Middle Classes in India. Here is the first move every top-scoring answer must make. Sociologically, the middle class in India is not defined by how much a household spends. It is defined by where its members are located occupationally. Professions like law and medicine, salaried services, public institutions like universities and courts. This is the site through which modern rationality was expected to enter Indian society. So the moment a policy statement measures the middle class only by consumption, you have your critique ready. The class is being reduced to a demand story. André Beteille is the canonical Indian voice here. In his interventions, notably in Chronicles of Our Time, Beteille argues that the Indian middle class is thin at the top of the professions and porous at the base, and that its stability is drawn from institutions rather than from income alone. Write that line in an answer, attribute it to Beteille, and you have anchored yourself in the syllabus. Now bring in Dipankar Gupta. In Mistaken Modernity, Gupta warns that cellular subscriptions and shopping arcades cannot be mistaken for modernity. Modernity for him means equal citizenship rights and impersonal rules. A 500-city consumption story without civic modernity is precisely what he calls mistaken modernity. Finally, C. Wright Mills in White Collar reminds us that the salaried person owns neither the means of production nor of subsistence, and is therefore exposed to every downturn. The recent breakpoint evidence that Indian urban cost of living is doubling every 8 years is Mills's anxiety rendered in rupees. Now let me speak to you as the examiner. Two answers land on my table on this question. Answer A opens by saying the middle class is growing and quotes the finance minister for 2 paragraphs. That is a narration. That answer scores around 14 out of 20. Answer B opens with a structural claim. The middle class is defined by its occupational anchorage in institutions, not by consumption. It then invokes Beteille with the exact concept, institutional modernity, and Dipankar Gupta with mistaken modernity. It uses the Aix-en-Provence claim in only 2 sentences as evidence. It brings in Mill's white collar for structural precarity. It closes with A.R. Desai's Marxist reading of jobless growth. That answer scores 18 or 19 out of 20. The lesson is this: the current event is your evidence. The theory is your destination. Never invert that. Here is the probable 20 marker for Mains 2026. In the light of recent official claims that India's middle class is the engine of the country's growth, critically examine the sociological adequacy of a consumption-based definition of the middle class in India. Notice the verb, critically examine, and notice the architecture. It gives you a live event and asks you to weigh the concept. That is exactly the format the paper has been moving towards since 2019. Event 2, and this one is enormous. On the 6th of July, the Registrar General of India began the second phase pre-test of Census 2027 in selected areas across states, including Haryana. The pre-test runs to the 18th of July with a revisional round on the 19th and 20th. Three things are historic here. First, this is India's first fully digital census. Enumerators use mobile applications. Second, this is the first census to permit self-enumeration. Third, and most importantly for us, this is the first census since independence to electronically collect caste data beyond the existing scheduled caste and scheduled tribe categories. The union outlay is around 11,718 crore rupees. Here is the sociological insight to lead with. A census is never a neutral instrument of counting. It is a technology through which the state renders a population governable. Every enumeration exercise participates in producing the very object it claims only to measure. So the moment you write an answer that treats caste enumeration purely as a welfare targeting tool, you have missed the sociological move. The move is to hold two truths together. Enumeration expands recognition. Enumeration also fixes categories that a democratic constitution asks society to dissolve. Two Indian thinkers must appear in this answer. B.R. Ambedkar first. In his essay, Castes in India, Their Mechanism, Genesis and Development, and in Annihilation of Caste, Ambedkar argues that caste survives because society enforces endogamy and that no reform reaches caste that leaves endogamy untouched. Counting caste is not annihilating caste. Enumeration without annihilation risks fixing the very categories a democratic society must dissolve. That is your first, sharp, attributable line. Second, M.N. Srinivas. Srinivas warned that caste as officially classified rarely matches caste as locally lived. The dominant caste of a Karnataka village exists in the field view, not in the census schedule. When the government builds a digital drop-down for Jati, it operationalizes the book view and flattens the field view. Third, G.S. Ghurye in Caste and Race in India documented how colonial ethnography from 1881 onwards engineered a national grid of Jati categories. The 2026 pre-test digitizes that grid. The medium is new. The logic is old. As the examiner again, let me tell you what separates a 14 from an 18 on this question. The 14-mark answer describes the census schedule, lists SCBC and OBC categories, and calls the exercise historic. The 18-mark answer opens with the framing that the census is a governance technology that produces categories. It names Ambedkar with the exact concept, endogamy, and cites the correct works. It names Srinivas with book view versus field view. It uses the 6th of July 2026 trigger and the Haryana pretest as evidence in one clean sentence. It closes by holding the tension between recognition and reification, and it links that tension to the constitutional annihilationist project. That closing move is the one that lifts an answer into the top slab. Here is the probable 20 marker. In the light of the first fully digital caste enumeration in Census 2027, critically examine the tension between recognition and reification in the sociology of caste. That is the exact language you should be practicing. Every word of that question maps to a concept we have just discussed. Let us close with the three takeaways. 1. When the middle class appears in a question, define it by occupational location in institutions and cite Beteille and Dipankar Gupta. 2. When the caste census appears, treat it as a governance technology and run the Ambedkar-Srinivas contrast. 3. And this is the meta rule for this entire year. Remember that in this paper, the current event is your evidence and the theory is your destination. If you invert that order, you narrate. If you keep it, you score. Take care of yourselves. This preparation is a long walk, and the ones who reach the top are almost always the ones who kept turning up on the days the fire had gone quiet. If today's method was useful, drop your email in the comments below or write to us at team@upscdesk.com, and the team will share the subscription details for the full-styled PDF brief with the answer blocks, model answers, quotation arsenal, flashcards, and examiner notes. See you tomorrow.